All right, we are live. Let's let everyone kind of log on here. Good evening, Kim.
Good evening. We're going to have some fun tonight.
Yep. All right, so I'm going to let, before we get started, let everybody kind of log on here. And hey, once you jump on here, give us the thumbs up, comment, let us know you're here. Let us know you can see us. How's it sound? How's it look?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. We'll let people log on here. Kim, what are we talking about tonight?
So we're talking about kickstarting your weight loss.
Yep.
And the key is naturally. That's the key there.
That's right. Yep. And so really this, this webinar, really we say kickstart your weight loss naturally. We're talking about optimizing your weight. Some people need to lose weight. Some people need to regulate their weight. Some people, it's about their metabolism, kickstarting their metabolism. But we're going to talk about addressing root causes of problems. And, why does this actually matter? Well, it matters a lot. And you and I are going to talk about why excess weight is a contributing factor to a lot of the problems that we're seeing right now, why excess weight actually can lead to some of the top diseases that we hear about. It's a comorbidity for COVID. And I shouldn't even say that word right now because of big tech censorship. It might get this whole thing taken down. So guys, just so you know, some of the things we're going to talk about tonight, we're going to do our absolute best to get you this type of information. And because right now, this information is being attacked and it's being censored. And it's hard to get this out to you more than it has been ever. And that's why I'm so thankful we have a network of doctors within MaxLiving. And how many of you out there, how many of you are connected to a MaxLiving office? Go ahead and comment. Which one are you connected to? Where are you from? So thankful for the offices all over the country who are delivering a message that's congruent and standing in the gap for people, because we need that now more than ever.
And I think if you're looking, like if you're in an area and you don't have a MaxLiving office, plug in the city, in the state where you're at, and that way we can get back with you at the end of the broadcast and really help connect you with the MaxLiving office in your area.
Look at all these comments coming in, Kim.
Love it.
Wow. Look, hey, we got Sarah Losby out there. We got somebody already throwing out stats. 80 to 85% of diseases start at the end of the gut. Ooh, look at that.
Maybe we'll have these guys run it, right?
So good.
These guys run. Throw your stats in there, right?
Yeah.
Keen Family Chiropractic. There's Austin, Texas. Woohoo!
Grand Rapids, Plano, Texas. Awesome. Got a lot of Texas. Got some
Georgia. Beth from Erb Family Wellness in South Lake. Woohoo! Way to represent.
Loving this. Hey, keep these comments going. This is great. We're going to go ahead and since we are now, it's time. So we're going to go ahead and jump into this. Kim, is just last night, I had a dinner with our, I don't want to say our best patients, but it was like a very exclusive dinner for those who have been with me for a long time. And it's just kind of an appreciation dinner. And there's probably 80 something, I think it was like 84 of my patients there last night. And, after I got done talking and we were eating together, it ended up being kind of an open mic time with people to come up and just kind of share their story, where they've come from, where they've been, and how MaxLiving has changed their life. And it's so cool to listen to. I had just last night, Chrissy and Nathan together, they've lost over 100 pounds in the last 2 years since starting and implementing these principles that we're going to talk tonight. I had another guy said he himself has lost over 100 pounds himself by implementing these principles. So I'm really excited. It really gave me courage or encouragement for tonight and what we're going to be talking about.
I mean, honestly, stories matter. It's all about the stories. Those stories represent people, grandparents, parents, children, honestly, children that will change. It'll change the trajectory of their family and how they raise their kids. So
that's right.
Stories matter. It's awesome.
Yep. Well, let's go through the rules of engagement. So tonight, as we go along here, here's what we don't want to happen. And here's why I don't like webinars. Because what happens with webinars is you're kind of watching the kids, or you're cooking dinner, or you're eating, or maybe you're scrolling on Facebook. Hopefully you're not doing that anymore. You're getting on Instagram, whatever it is. Like you're doing other things while you should just be focused here. If you were in like one of our offices in a workshop, what would you be doing? You'd be listening, you'd be taking notes, you'd be excited about it, you'd be so engaged, you'd be answering questions. So here's the rules of engagement for tonight. Pretend that you're in a clinic listening to the workshop and you're taking notes, and you might have been, let's say you've been connected to MaxLiving for the past 10 years and you know all of this information. Great. Learn how to speak it yourself at this point. It's time to go out there and get that next person who's never heard this information. Maybe it's time for you to wrap your arms around somebody who might be a newcomer or a newbie, and start, really welcoming them and embracing them. And so no matter where you are on the spectrum, let's make sure that you are, paying attention, you're taking notes, and you're really engaging here tonight. And one of the ways you engage is post comments. I love all these comments that I'm seeing. Go ahead and give me a thumbs up if you're with me, that you're committing, you're engaged, you're gonna stay connected this whole time and not kind of wander off into social media or other forms of screen time.
I like that you said teach it on, because there's a lot of people in here maybe who have found success. See, do, teach. One of the principles that we teach in our office. You see it first, you see it done, you do it, then you teach it. When you teach it, you master it.
That's right. That's right. Amazing. So let's go ahead and get started. Many of you have seen this study of where we are right now as a nation. And, I love this Blue Cross Blue Shield study because it says just straight from their study. And remember, this is Blue Cross Blue Shield. So they've got all these metrics and all this data of their people. So they can see when health starts to decline, they can actually see that with their metrics. And they actually demonstrated that now with millennials, over the hill is starting at age 27. So Kim, you're not a millennial.
No, you are though. We discovered that today. Nope. I'm on the Gen X path right there, but man.
Well, technically I am a millennial, but I don't identify as one, so we're good. So we're fine.
And that's exactly right. You don't live like one. So the millennials in the 1981, so if you were born 1981 to 1996, you're falling in that millennial category. But I think today you can choose to make a difference for the millennials and do it for yourself and do it for your family. I was blown away by this study. Just, you're talking about 27. I'm a mother of 2 adult kids. I'm a 10-year-old also, but I'm a mother of 2 adult kids. They're in the Z, the Gen Z category. But this is so disturbing, the things that I saw in this, that 1/3 of millennials actually have health conditions that affect their quality of life. In fact, the top 3 that they talk about in the study is depression, 31%. It affects millennials, 31%. Hyperactivity and type 2 diabetes. Yep. Blown away by that.
Well, they actually showed double-digit increases for 8 of the top 10 health conditions. So just think about that. It's a 31% increase in depression. This was just from 2014 to 2017. 29% increase in hyperactivity, 22% increase in diabetes. The conclusion that they have, which is the part that I really don't like, was, okay, we need more healthcare. That's really what they said. So, okay, we need more healthcare. Well, look at what we're getting with more healthcare. Right now, we have lifestyle-caused epidemic with diabetes. Now there's more than 34.2 million Americans have diabetes. By the way, that's 110% increase in diabetes compared to 2015. So it's clear that as far as the direction we're going the wrong direction.
That's right.
And this is costing that person so much, not just in dollars and cents as you see on the screen, but that person's life, that person's function, that person's ability to be that person God created them to be, that's affecting their future and affecting their potential.
I was blown away by the fact that they said in 1950s, the average size was a size 8. And now the average size is a size 14 to 16. I just think about that. Like, that's crazy, the difference in, and you see on there where they're talking about how the average American spends almost $17,000. You're going to pay one way or another. A lot of people are like, well, I don't want to buy like healthy food, but you're going to pay one way or another. Why not make the choice to pay ahead of time and follow the things that we talk about, so you don't have to be forced to be involved in paying for all these costs?
Well, and as one of my great friends once said in the comments on the side, actually, more access to a broken system fixes absolutely nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And she's right. That fixes nothing. So, you know, if you think about diabetes in general, what's the conventional recommendations? Well, the conventional recommendations with nutrition, you can see why we ended up here is eat a lot of what? Carbohydrates at each meal. You can make sure you don't get any fat whatsoever or no fat. And then there's never any recommendation saying that you can reverse this. Even with conventional medical treatments with whatever named medication, which I can't name the medication because of big tech censorship right now, it's, hey, take this. And how long are you expected to take this? Really for the rest of your life. And it's only to manage the sickness. We're not even talking about reversing the disease.
Absolutely. What a big lie. Like we've been told. I love that. The diabetes is a state of carbohydrate toxicity. I mean, what a lie we've been told. Because listen to that lie.
Now what do we end up with? Now we end up with type 3 diabetes, which is AKA Alzheimer's, this entire new category of diabetes. And this correlation between insulin and really what we'd call brain cell deterioration, it's one of the root causes of Alzheimer's. So 2005 studied revealed that there's a connection of insulin levels that were going up in Alzheimer's. And what health practitioners began to wonder about Alzheimer's disease is, should we just call it type 3 diabetes? Because that seems to be exactly what it is. And this really flies in the face of what we knew and studied. And even when you went to school and I went to school, Kim, we were told what? That Alzheimer's had to do with the beta amyloid plaque buildup. It was all about this plaque buildup. And that's why you see all the drugs really target the beta amyloid plaque buildup. But there was an incredible study that came out of University of Maryland. It was the Department of Pathology. And they found that the beta amyloid plaque actually has a protective role against pathogens, heavy metals, and toxicants. And what happens is high doses of sugar causes it to then turn on itself and become extremely toxic. And so you actually need that plaque there. It's actually that beta amyloid proteins in themselves are actually a positive thing, protecting your brain for pathogens and toxicants and heavy metals.
So the bottom line is, what's so interesting about this is that that one lie that we've been told has built massive businesses, eye doctors, because what? Diabetes affects the eyes, right? Heart doctors affecting the heart, foot doctors because they have all the foot problems, right? The nerve issues in their feet, drug company. I mean, it's built massive businesses, home care facilities, long-term care facilities for these folks. That one lie.
That one lie.
It's devastating, devastated families. I mean, totally devastated families.
And we have people saying, I've never heard of type 3 diabetes. Of course you haven't. People have not heard of this. This is why we got to get this message out to people, because if you're not hearing it from mainstream, which you certainly are not going to anymore, you're not going to hear it from, you're not going to hear it from, when you go into your medical establishment. If you're going the traditional medical route, you're going to hear it because you dig in and learn on your own, and you got to invest into your health and your future in this way. That's the whole reason why the MaxLiving doctors all over the country are having what's called a MaxLiving makeover. Right. I mean, this, do you remember, Kim, Extreme Home Makeover?
Yes, right? I remember that. Yeah.
That's the whole, it came from this, really. Extreme Home Makeover. Well, this is Extreme Health Makeover. Mm-hmm. And whether your doctor is having it on, a webinar like this, or they're in an area where they're doing it in person, the makeover is really where the magic happens. Makeover is generally 3 hours worth of information where it's like, all right, we are digging in deep. We're going into the workshopping of the material. So we're going to go through the logistics of how to change your life. We're going through nutrition in depth. We're talking recipes. We're talking about action and implementation. We're talking about your big why and the reason why you even want to do this. And it's so stinking important. And so, yes, we can't get into all that tonight. We're not going to. That's 3 hours worth of content. But that's why you sign up for the makeover. And I know I already see a bunch of, I see you on there, comments about signing up for the makeover. Yeah, so if you've not signed up for your doctor's makeover, make sure you get signed up for the makeover. Just contact your MaxLiving doctor. If you're not connected to a MaxLiving clinic, connect to one. Find one in your area. Just go to maxliving.com, find a doc. It's as easy as that. Get signed up for the makeover. All you have to do is contact their office and simply find out how to register. It's as simple as that.
What I love about the Extreme Makeover too is you get to see the before and you get to see the after. So when people show up to these makeovers, these MaxLiving doctors are going to show you like these before and after testimonies of just unbelievable transformations. That's right. What gets you motivated, gets you fired up.
Yep. So what you're going to learn tonight, though, in the next however long, I don't want to put a time frame on it, Kim. What you're going to learn tonight, though, we're going to talk about 7 tricks to lose weight fast. Not gimmicky. That's the thing about some of these weight loss programs that you hear about. So gimmicky. You get these astronaut foods that come to your door, and you could put them in the microwave, and poof, you get food. Mm-hmm. Listen, you don't want to lose weight just to have a lighter coffin. You're trying to lose weight to be healthy. And so we're going to talk about tricks to get ahead of this on your terms. We're going to talk about the toxic top 5, how to avoid them. And then we're also going to address the 3 tips from cultures who live free of heart disease, cancer, and chronic disease. And really, we're going to talk about it starting from a place of, I would say philosophy that the body is brilliant. It's intelligently designed. We believe that the body is always doing the right thing at the right time. Every 4 to 5 days, your small intestines get a whole new epithelial cell lining, and it's orchestrated by the brain and the stem cells. And you have the ability to completely repopulate your entire intestinal tract. It's only every 4 to 5 days. Every 2 months or so, your skin completely turns over. Cardiac cell regeneration. It's now a confirmed reality that blood and bone marrow, they're capable of replenishing itself. And the same thing is true about the brain. And so your body is so intelligent. It's more like a fountain than it is a sculpture. It's constantly replacing itself. It's working towards health. It's working towards balance. And it all depends on what you allow and then what you allow to be interfered with. And what I mean by that is really the body doesn't need a lot of help. It just needs no interference. So it's based off of what we do and how we live. And it's incredible. We believe design. And the reality is that fundamental paradigm right there, starting from that place, is so important. Whichever doctor you choose to participate with in healthcare, it's so important that we're starting with a premise that is the body can heal. The body has the potential to do great things. The body is pre-programmed for health. When you start from that place, then you look at things so much differently. Yeah.
I mean, just the reminder, if this doesn't remind you that you are fearfully and wonderfully made, it's so powerful that it's worth restating. Like, your body doesn't need any help healing. It just doesn't need any interference. And so what we teach in the offices and at this makeover is, what are we doing, maybe unknowingly or knowingly, to interfere with this beautiful design that allows our body to heal itself? What's the interference?
Yep. And so we'll talk tonight about how food is information for our genome. The Western diet, it's a biological mismatch. And so we're going to talk through that and what it's leading to, because the average person, if you ask them, hey, are you healthy or not? The average person is going to say, yeah, I'm healthy. But how they define that is critical. Most people define health by how they feel. But by the time you're not feeling great, most of the time your body is in a place of dysfunction. Many times this person's on medications. A lot of times that person, health is not really the highest of priority at that point. And what will happen is, if we just judge our health by how we feel, we start to feel just a little bit better. And then what do? We go back to that same lifestyle that would have caused it in the first place. And so really, when it comes to the decisions that we make, we're either more moving towards 100% vitality or 0% vitality. And it's based off the decisions that we make. But there's that comfort zone, which we'd call the false sense of wellness, where that's really the danger zone. Is we feeling all right. Our lifestyle habits, they're not very consistent, but that's really the danger zone, because in a car, if you're on the interstate and you take your foot off the gas, you slow down. Eventually you come to a stop. The same thing happens when we're not focused on our habits, our lifestyle, and the things we're doing on a day in and day out basis. We're either building health or building disease.
A lot of our patients, it's interesting, we hear from them when they're at that number 6, like you said, like kind of in the false, wellness space. Mm-hmm. And that's usually when they get their first symptom. So whatever that symptom is, an itch, a scratch, a bellyache, whatever that symptom is, we are so hardwired to grab something to cover that up, run to Walgreens, run to CVS. Like, we're just so hardwired. We've been programmed to do that. And it's kind of equivalent to, I tell my patients all the time, is equivalent to the check engine light coming on your car.
Mm-hmm.
You would never take tape and just put it over the check engine light. And when you go looking for an outside substance to take away these symptoms rather than looking for the cause, that's when we get ourselves in trouble.
So where we see people do the absolute best is if you look at that kind of number 10, that optimal health, they do have great health habits. They've worked hard to get there over time. They take full responsibility for their health outcomes. What does that mean? Is that when they have something go wrong, they look inside first. What can I be doing better? They do have a strong health philosophy because it all really does start with how you view your health, how you view your body, and starting at that place where, no, it's not that my headache is an absence of X medication in my bloodstream, or my high cholesterol didn't just happen to me, but it happened maybe even because of me. And so with that recognition of that and understanding of that, it helps you to kind of direct the path and know where you need to go.
That's right.
And so one of the things that you and I see, Kim, is one of the problems is this law of diminishing intentions. What do I mean by that? Is, well, it's that we want to do something, but we never get around to doing it. So you might say, hey, I want to go to the Max Living Makeover. It sounds great. Well, did you sign up yet? Because Jim Rohn once said, no, as John Maxwell said, 5 frogs are sitting on a log, 4 decide to jump off. How many are left? And you might say 1, but the real answer is 5, because deciding is not doing. So you might say, I want to go to the makeover, or I want to lose 20 pounds, or I want to start exercise. Well, deciding is not doing, and taking action. When you have that thought and says, hey, I really want to do this, well, you got to act on that as soon as possible. It's one of the laws of success. So don't fall victim to the Lodi monster, which is the law of diminishing intentions.
That's right. Funny, I was actually just got back from Christmas vacation. We worked on our goals, our whole family. I told you I have 2 adult children. And so we worked on our goals. And my 18-year-old freshman in college, she puts together her whole list of all her things that she wants to do. And, she wants to, lose weight. So she's going to eat better and do all this stuff. And she starts out in desire, like you said on there, like desires to do it, and gets home and gets around all her college friends. And it's like the why, like I tell her, I said, what's the why about? Because it just went out the window. Like her meals, everything just kind of went out the window. And I just had to remind her, like, why are you doing that? We got to figure out what your why is. I think a lot of people, if this is you and you need to plug into this makeover, or you need to plug into the Max Living, offices around you, you need help in this area, comments on what is your why? Like, why would you want to lose weight? Why would that be important to you? I think maybe we can start some accountability going for people, just plugging that into the comment section right now.
That's right. Yeah. And so what we're going to talk about next is we're going to go into just some tips from cultures who've lived free of heart disease, cancer, and ultimately just chronic disease. And if you remember the Blue Zone study by Dan Buettner, he did a study of centurions, and those are people who live to be 100 and beyond. And he went into the study to determine, what were the underlying common denominators that all these people had in common. And it's really a fascinating study. If you've read about it, it's pretty cool to see some of these common denominators. There's 9, I believe, to those who live to 100 and beyond. And I want to highlight just a couple of these. And then I want to then talk about, Kim, you and I are going to talk about nutritionally why some of these might be actually flawed. And we'll talk about why that is. But one of the 9 factors or denominators that Dan Buettner found as an underlying issue, or as an underlying factor between all zones that had people who lived to 100 beyond, one was they had community and they had belonging, which we don't have a whole lot of that right now in the world, actually. But when he studied them, all but 5 of the 263 centurions they interviewed belonged to some type of faith-based community. And research shows that attending faith-based services 4 times per month will add between 4 and 14 years of life expectancy. Another one was that they loved, they put their loved ones first. So successful centurions in the blue zones always put their family first. And that meant keeping aging parents and grandparents nearby in the home. Not is rare that any of the older adults were in a different home or maybe in a nursing home like we see here. No, they kept them close. And um, one of the things is they commit to a life partner, which they said can add 3 years of life expectancy, and invest in their children and with their time and their love. And by the way, that makes them more likely to take care of you when you get older.
That's right.
So the other one that I want to highlight that was such a positive thing from his study was a deep sense of purpose. They all had this deep sense of purpose. In the Okinawans, they call it Aikige, and the Nicaragüens call it plan de vida. And both translate to the why I wake up in the morning. And so knowing your sense of purpose, they say, is worth up to 7 years of extra life expectancy. And again, this is why we at these makeovers, we talk so much about knowing your why, knowing your purpose, because it's easy to know the how. It's very difficult to identify the why. But once you identify the why, the how becomes natural, and it becomes something that you're just going to go after and figure out. But most of the time, if you don't have a good and strong enough why, many of those goals that you have for yourself, it becomes so much more difficult to achieve because there's not a compelling reason to keep going. And so that's the reason why we really dig into that at these workshops. And again, the makeover that maybe your doctor is doing it on the 16th, maybe it's on the 23rd, maybe it's on the 30th. Regardless, make sure you reach out to your office and your doctor and find out how to register and when yours is. But nutritionally, the blue zones, you'll walk away. If you actually read this book, you're going to walk away believing nutritionally that the key to longevity is actually eating very little meals. Very little meats, rather, like very little animal fats. You're going to walk away thinking that, fat is the enemy. But if you actually study the regions that he studied, they actually consumed quite a bit of animal fat.
Yep. Organ meat.
Organ meat is another one. Icarians, as an example, consumed a lot of organ meat. They also consumed goat milk and goat milk products. Buettner even described what he ate with them as a diet high in goat milk products. Well, fun fact, goat milk is higher in fat and higher in saturated fat than cow's milk.
That's right.
There's a reason why there was an obvious slant away from animal products and away from a raw full fat dairy. And as usual, follow the money. The Blue Zone Project was largely funded by the National Institute on Aging, which was part of the National Institute of Health, which has firmly embraced this ideology that really is from the USDA dietary guidelines of low fat, very heavy emphasis on grains and breads, and they vilify saturated animal fat. But it is also funded by Davisco Foods International. And so I'm describing this because this is the reason why you're getting the standard American diet recommendations that you've gotten. Because
we're trying not to get kicked off too. So
I know I'll be careful. But Davisco Foods International they produce low fat cheeses, whey protein isolates. It's not the type of organization that's going to be it's not going to benefit them if all of a sudden you go to your local farmer's market and ask for raw whole dairy products sold directly from farm to consumer. So contrary to what you've been told, there's not really a single diet that all centurions had in common, because they were eating based off of their region, their proximity. We talk about the Mediterranean diet. Well, look at the different regions in the Mediterranean. The sea, those who lived by the sea ate more seafood. Those who lived in the mountains ate more meats.
Yep. Whatever was really available in the region.
It's all about the region. But again, there are some underlying factors that some underlying things they all had in common between those people, like the Seventh-day Adventists in California, Okinawa, Japan. They did have some things in common when it came to their nutrition. And that's what we're going to talk about. One was no processed foods. They didn't have access to them. In fact, when you gave access to them, like in Okinawa, Japan, when tourists from the West started visiting the island, when they found out about the blue zones, they'd bring over their very highly refined breads and the processed foods. And it might surprise you, but the Okinawans ate them like it's candy, right? So they didn't have access to it, but when you gave them access to it, they did eat it. And sure enough, what started happening is that those centurions, the percentage of them went down as that region became more touristy. And so one of the things for me is that, for you and I, at least, the lesson is that don't keep it in your house. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're an Okinawan who's over 100 years old and have not eaten this stuff in your life. If you get presented with it, that temptation gets to be that much harder. So create your own blue zone in your own house. Don't have it in your home, and you're gonna be way less tempted to eat it.
You keep going back to that one lie that we were told. Back a few slides, we talked about that one lie that we've been told, all the the carbs, the high carbs that people were doing, how that has just caused so much devastation. And honestly, if we just shift our mindset to these three principles here, with the no processed foods, just like you said, don't have it in your house. If there's something that is, a vacation meal, get it out of your house. I tell people, don't just give some of this vegetable oil, don't just give it away, throw it away. There's no benefit to anybody for that.
Well, and all the centurions ate life-giving nutrients at virtually every meal. And so it's rich in fruits and vegetables from the land. They did plenty of animal products, including animal fat. You say, well, how am I going to burn fat if I eat fat? You need fat to burn fat. Most of the ancient cultures did not have access to refrigeration. So what they would do is they would salt the meat and then cover it with large amounts of butter or lard. They ate lard. They ate organ meats. When they consumed dairy, it was mostly raw, full fat. So life-giving nutrients. And then food by God versus food by man. We say man or manufacture because these cultures, they never consumed foods that were chemically altered or genetically manipulated. The idea of eating foods that were sprayed with pesticides or herbicides, it's completely foreign to these cultures. So in fact, when you talk to regenerative farmers, they're going to tell you that, when they have their farm, their soil, it's so rich in nutrients that it attracts good bugs to the land, and that those good bugs are necessary and they're healthy. And when the soil attracts good bugs, you don't get bad bugs. And so I understand that the regenerative farming can be slower and can return less yield, but ultimately it's healthier for you and I. And that's the whole concept of food by God versus food by man or food by manufacture. Let
thy food be thy medicine, right? And the other principle is there's a way that seems right to man and leads to death. So if we opened a clinic in Zimbabwe, and that was they were so worried that everyone in the area was going to starve. So that's what they were shifting to. Let's figure out how to do the GMO and do all this stuff. And I'm like, please don't do that. You will compromise. There will be devastation as soon as you start going down the road of food by man.
That's right. So let's talk through the 7 tips to burn fat and ultimately restore vitality. Now, why did we throw that in there? Because it's not about just burning fat. It's about getting your body to function at its absolute best, restoring 100% function or 100% vitality. And, what's interesting, you and I were talking about this earlier, is that, there's actually a comorbidity that's mostly associated with cancer.
Yeah.
And yeah, what is it, Kim?
Belly fat.
Belly fat. Belly fat is the #1 predictor of cancer. Belly fat is. And so you might say, well, I don't really need to lose weight. Well, okay, that might be fine if you don't need to. But we could all use to know principles to burn extra fat and build lean muscle. And so important.
It's empowering to know that there's one thing that is in your, that you can do. Just one thing you can do is work on that belly fat. You're slashing your risk of cancer by just making sure you don't have that belly fat.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And so #1, 7 tips to burn fat, restore vitality. 1 is cut the processed carbs.
That'll take care of helping you with that belly fat. That's for sure. Right. There's a study on this one that talks about the agouti rat study. Everyone should look this up. It's a fascinating study. And what they did with these rats, they separated them and they studied this mom and the baby rats. And what they basically found out was that they normally, in the one group of rats, the babies would come out looking just like mom. And so they all came out yellow, fat, and they were all susceptible to disease. And so the next group of rats, what they did was just feed them good food, stuff with nutrients. And they fed that to the pregnant rat mom. And then when their babies came out, the babies actually came out brown. They were slim and they were healthy. And the one factor was diet. Yep. That was one factor. I mean, that's fascinating. Talk about belly fat, right? Babies, yep. Right? Healthy that's babies. Right. It's awesome. Cut the processed carbs right there.
Yeah, and we say processed for a reason because, hey, there's carbs in vegetables. There's carbs in fruit. And that people say some things like, well, is this like, they used to say, is this Atkins? Now what do they say? Is this keto? No, we're not talking about keto. We're not talking about Atkins, because technically you can get yourself right out of keto with just a couple of berries. We're not talking about that. What we're talking about is how to sustainably live a life that you're burning fat, you're restoring vitality. This is a lifestyle. This is a way to truly live. And number 2 is count toxins before calories. Kim, this is a big one.
Count toxins before calories. I'm still stuck on the belly fat thing. It just makes me think about, you know, toxins are stored in fat cells. Your body is going to protect your nerve system at all costs. And so if you're consuming toxins, whether they're foods that are sprayed with all these pesticides and chemicals, your body is going to store fat to protect yourself from the toxins. So if we start to make some of these changes, just the 3 changes that we just talked about, no refined foods, food by God, right? Just those few changes that we just talked about, that'll count your toxic load big time. Life-giving nutrients. And when you do that, then you can remove those toxins and the fat cells can go away just by counting the toxins before the calories.
Yep. So when you're looking at the thing at the supermarket, even though, like somebody said, like Nancy Ray said, shop the outer perimeter of the grocery store, stay out of the middle aisles. Yep. That's exactly right, Nancy. I'm so glad you said that. So when you're reading something though, and let's say you are in the inner aisles, you're reading something, the front of it's actually the marketing, the back of it's where the good stuff is. That's where you can see the ingredients, and you're not looking at the calorie content as much as you are the ingredient content. It's so much more important. What goes in your food becomes a part of you. It speaks to your DNA, your genetic, your genome is influenced by what you put into your body. It becomes a part of you. And so count calories before, or I'm sorry, count toxins before you count calories. And the third tip to burn fat and restore vitality is control insulin, ghrelin, and leptin. And these might be foreign words to some people. People probably have heard insulin, but maybe not ghrelin and leptin.
Yeah, so ghrelin is that hunger hormone.
That's right. So
if we can manage to follow those 3 rules that we talked about, then it helps to reset your ghrelin hormone. If you get the sugars out of your house, you get the refined foods out of your house, and your brain will tell your ghrelin that you're satisfied. You don't have to keep on eating, right, to fill yourself up with these empty calories. And the leptin, you know, your brain has to hear leptin to burn fat. But if you are putting all this processed food in, and you're, you know, got all these toxic foods that you're eating, your brain, like your hormones get trashed. And this is one of the reasons why a lot of people are having a hard time actually burning that belly fat, losing weight.
And so the ways to control insulin, ghrelin, and leptin is really to focus on, or not focus really on sugar, because sugar will actually spike these things and will throw off your hormones. And the way I remember ghrelin is growl. So your stomach is growling. So it's telling you, your body, that you're hungry. It's telling your brain that you're hungry. Leptin is telling you that you're full. And when these hormones get thrown off, what ends up happening is it almost becomes like insulin resistance. You know how insulin resistance becomes an issue with driving glucose into the cell? Well, if your leptin is constantly, or your ghrelin constantly says, I'm hungry, I'm hungry, I'm hungry, or your leptin says, you know, hey, I'm full, but you ignore these signals, well, what happens is that you're really creating this like leptin resistance, this closed loop circuit. Well, then you're going to start building fat, and then the more fat cells you have, the more of those signals then create up back to the brain, and then it creates this cycle that it's hard to really get out of. And then you have this person who either overeats or stops listening to their body. And too much adipose fat tissue does lead to other hormonal problems. And as you said, is a breeding grounds for disease, such as things like cancer. Mm-hmm. And, you know, one of, who was it in here? It was Paula Tarver. I just saw commented and said she's on 43 hours of her 72-hour long fast, which is awesome. That is amazing. Paula, well done. She's doing an extended fast. And that's what our next point is, this feast and famine. And this is the no snacking rule. Now, your fasting might not be like Paula's is. She's obviously worked up to that. Yeah. Autophagy. There's lots of different things.
That's what I was thinking about. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, there's all kinds of cool things that happen within your body when you do extended fast. You know, you can work your way up to, an extended fast like that. But even just the principle of feast and famine, you know, our ancestors didn't have access to food all the time. So they went long periods of really famine. And then, yeah, they might have a short window of eating where they consume more calories than what they necessarily would the next day. But there's these long times of feast and then also famine. And our body works really well when you put these cycles in there. But what happens, snacking will actually throw that off. And so you and I were taught, keep the metabolism high by continuously eating nuts and berries and whatever else to just keep your metabolism high so you're constantly burning. Nope, that has been directly proven to be false. So fact check that one, and that one did not make it through. And
the worst time for the snacking that everybody, like the worst time is at night. Like, yeah, that exactly. Most of the people are snacking. And so I try to tell people 3 hours before bed, stop eating.
That's right.
3 hours before bed. If you can just like implement that one rule 3 hours before bed, that'll save you a lot.
Well, and remember that every night you really want to be fasting every evening. So, you know, breakfast technically is break fast. And so there should be a window where you're not eating for an extended period of time. And whenever you eat that first meal of your next day, that's breakfast, but that could be noon for you. That's and right. So there's a concept of intermittent fasting here that, you know, implementing this intermittent fasting or extended fasts like Paula's doing, or OMAD, which is called, that stands for 1 meal a day. That's another way to really kickstart and reboot your hormones. But again, during all of this, you got to cut out those things that turn to sugar. So the grains, the pastas, the breads, those types of things will turn to sugar almost immediately within your mouth, that your body's already converting it to sugar. And so how do we reset our hormones, and how do we burn fat, restore vitality? Well, one of the ways is make sure that we kick the grains, breads, pastas, control the hormones that lead to that, implement some of these other principles like feast or famine. And then once we get to be more, I'd say, advanced, you can start getting into these other things like intermittent fasting, extended fasts like Paula's doing, or OMAD, 1 meal a day.
I like, and I also keep in mind things like, because intermittent fasting is really a pattern of eating. And so what you were saying earlier, like a real common time that people like to eat is like in like an 8-hour window from like 11 to 7 or something like that. And then 3 hours before bed, you know, go to bed at 10. So 11 to 7, and just make sure that your feeding window and your fasting window, that means that your feeding window is 8 hours and your fasting window is 16 hours.
Mm-hmm.
So you're really, during that period of time, helping to heal your hormones, your insulin, your ghrelin, your leptin. And the key is to not be eating bad stuff during that time. It's doing what you just said, for sure.
Yeah. And that's where people come off of an extended fast, and then they'll load right back up on the things that would cause them to be inflamed and sick in the first place. And it's such an opportune window to not do that. When you come off of any kind of fast, the first thing you put in your body is so critical. And so, you know, ideally life-giving nutrients, ideally it's vegetables, it's fruits, I wouldn't even go into too heavy with meats, depending on how long the fast is, just because it's going to be harder on the digestive tract. But slow entry is so important. Be patient with yourself when you're coming off of a fast. Mm-hmm. Somebody asked for OMAD, what's the preferred time to eat? Well, remember, it's technically a 24-hour cycle that you're not necessarily eating. So that depends entirely on your schedule when you want to plan that meal.
That's right.
Some people believe that it's harder to sleep when they are on an extended fast. And so some people will start the first one with dinner at like 6 p.m. and not eat until 7 p.m. the next day. Whatever that is for you or however that looks for you. It's not about the same schedule for everyone. It's more about, hey, how do we eliminate food for a period of time, how to have a better relationship with food in general and not be dependent on constant snacking.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Next point before we get into plan ahead, and this kind of fits right in here with high intensity interval training, or AKA Max T3. Yeah. MaxLiving, we call it Max T3. There's a certain principle of high intensity, short duration training that has really been shown to have a heavy influence on your hormones, also help you to build lean muscle, burn fat, and it does not have to take hours at a time. It can be as little as 12 to 30 minutes, but doing it consistently is key. When we're talking to most people, Kim, you and I both have seen this. It's not about the type of workout as much as it is doing. That most people need to move consistently and make this a part of their plan and their routine. Max T3 makes this super easy. You can get online and just do it from the comfort of your own home, no equipment, all body weight mostly. And you can follow Dr. Fred there and have fun with it. But most people just don't plan ahead well enough to do this.
And the time is no excuse, because usually people are saying like, I don't have time. Like, these workouts are 12 minutes. Everybody has 12 minutes. It's just a matter of doing it. Put it on your phone, right? Plug the Max T3 on your phone. Choose your exercise. It's super simple to do.
Yep. That brings us to plan ahead. So planning ahead. So a goal without a plan is a plan to fail. And so planning ahead, plan your meals ahead, right? On whatever night that you want it to be. For our home, it's Sunday night. We're planning out our meals. We're looking at, okay, where are we going to be? We don't want to get caught in a situation where, we're like driving around starving. Like, that's always the worst possible scenario to be in. So plan ahead. What is your day going to look like? When are your meals? Hey, you're going to save money by doing this because you can use the same meal same recipe for multiple meals. Mm-hmm. So that pot of chili or whatever, that advanced plan chili, if you're a MaxLiving person, you know what that means. Like, that's going to go far. You're going to have that 2 or 3 nights. So you can plan ahead. You're going to save money doing it that way. And you're also going to save yourself and your family when it comes to planning kids' lunches and things like that. Plan ahead. And that way you don't end up sending them to school and they end up with school lunches just because there was really no plan. All right. So we talked about toxicity. The truth is, our cells hate toxins. Yeah. They hate them. Chemical exposure, our cells just are not designed to deal with toxicity. And we know that not only does it lead to, weight gain and disrupts the hormones, but what happens to a healthy cell when it's injured, it goes one of 2 ways. It goes to a dead cell, which is cellular death, or it transforms, it mutates, it adapts, and that's called AKA cancer cell when it goes rogue. So our cells hate chemicals. And that's why one of our concepts is count chemicals, not calories. And if you listen to Edward Group, he says by cleansing your body on a regular basis and eliminating as many toxins as possible from your environment, your body can begin to heal itself, prevent disease, become stronger and more resilient than you ever dreamed possible. But we get exposed to so many toxins. One is because we just, we're not paying a whole lot of attention. And number 2, it's just they're hidden everywhere.
Well, number 3 is that we're in 2021 now, but 2020 has been an enormous amount of toxins. Like, we've all been exposed to more toxins probably than we ever have. I mean, the massive onslaught of everybody having to clean everything. Everywhere you go, you walk into a room and it's like you walk into a business, you walk into your gym, you walk anywhere, and like the overload of toxins because everyone is like, today, one of my patients was on the table and I grabbed her hand and her hand is like all wrinkled up. It's because she's putting toxins on her hands all day. She washes like constantly. This is such an enormous deal and causing toxins to the cells. Your cells don't like toxins and it creates more belly fat.
Yeah. Right? And so there's 5 toxins that, have been deemed the toxic top 5. And number one is our water. So our water, two of the primary water pollutants are large-scale industrial farms and confined animal feeding operations, so CAFOs. And these are just unintended byproducts that end up in our water. So mercury, water fluoridation. Again, that might be a naughty word right now and might get us censored if I talk too much about this one. But arsenic and pharmaceutical drugs, they end up in our water system. How do pharmaceuticals end up in our water system? Well, people flushing them down the toilet. We do urinate out toxins. And so that does end up back into our water supply. They found birth control. There's antidepressants that found in tap water. And so our water system is toxic. Even old pipes. You know, most of the drinking water infrastructure across the nation is, they say, nearing the end of its useful life. So those water pipes, they contain lead, copper, bacteria. And so tap water is very toxic. And that's one of the reasons why getting a whole house filtration system, or even a at the drinking spout, maybe even a reverse osmosis filter, something to make sure that you are being extra cautious about the water that you put into your body. If you do reverse osmosis, ideally you want to remineralize the water. That's a different topic, but the point is that water is toxic. Also, what you bathe in, so that bathing water is also something to be considered. So I've heard, Kim, and maybe you've heard differently on this, that
when you take a shower, and that, you know, dilates all the blood vessels in your head, and you're just pouring chlorine and all these chemicals into or you're bathing your baby in a bathtub. Like, no.
Yeah. And I've heard different stats, but I've heard it's when you are bathing in the water for 30 minutes, it's equivalent to drinking 4 to 8 glasses of that water. Right. And so, you know, so we don't think about these things, but what goes on our skin gets into our body. And that brings us to our next one, which is number 2, modern agricultural practices. So this is, you know, again, that naughty word that might get us censored, but GMOs, genetically modified organisms, which is corn. I live in Indiana, and we got a lot of corn here in Indiana that is genetically modified. Most of it around the world is genetically modified. Soy is also the one of the highest genetically modified crops. Cotton is also another one that most people don't think about, but they've never had any studies or thoroughly studied long-term health complications of genetic modified food. Over half of the European countries have opted out of GMOs. The US, we still have chosen not to regulate its use, but genetic modification of our food plays a big role in toxicity.
So you want to, when you shop, you want to make sure you're looking for that label, certified, or the non-GMO project. There's like a little label, a stamp on food when you buy it, like looking for that label to make sure that it's non-GMO, because they don't have to label it. They don't have, you know, in America, our clinic in Zimbabwe is overrun now, you know, with GMOs. But if you travel over in Europe on the way headed over to Zimbabwe, like, they don't have this stuff over there. We have just totally trashed our farms. We've totally trashed, and we are going to have to work extra hard. When you shop now, you have to shop and work a lot harder and be a lot more diligent in making sure that you're shopping. And remember, I know people say like it's expensive, but you are going to pay one way or another. Why not pay on this end so you don't end up with a diagnosis on the other end that you're going to have to pay for? You don't have a choice. Yeah,
Nancy Ray said over here, she commented here, she said, look not at what it costs, but what it's worth.
That's right.
Great. Look not at what, I like that, Nancy. That's great. And we didn't even get into pesticides, which, geez, we could talk about that all day, and grain-fed beef, but that goes into the modern agricultural practices. You know, grain-fed beef can cause acidity in the body. Provides less cancer-fighting CLAs, which are conjugated nucleic acids. You know, cattle, they just don't naturally feed on grain.
That's right.
Farmers feed cows grain in order to fatten them quickly. They save on costs. Grain-fed beef has been linked to heart disease, been linked to cancer. So that's why it lands on our list. Number 2, modern agricultural practices. Number 3, household cleaners and cosmetics. Now, some of these are pretty bad, Kim, and you know more about this than I would.
You know, I just think about what the umbilical cord, like in when you have a baby, they check the umbilical cord blood. There's like 286 chemicals
Hmm.
that they find in babies. And so these poor babies, they don't have an option. They don't have a choice. They're counting on us to get this right. You know, looking at these household cleaners and the cosmetics, you're talking about foaming agents, the sodium lauryl sulfate.
Hmm.
You know, this stuff, you walk down the aisle. If you walk down the aisle in the grocery store and you have a migraine or a headache, or you get brain fog, or you feel a little weird in the grocery store, that's not something you want to buy and put in your shopping cart and go home and use. And so we've got to really look at cleaning this stuff up, looking for things like DEA, looking for things like the sodium lauryl sulfates, looking for, you know, these toxic chemicals. If there's a long list of chemicals on the back of the products that you're buying and you can't pronounce them, they're probably not things you want to buy.
Yeah, and that's why at these makeovers we go through what to do. You know, it's gonna again, we're gonna run out of time going through all the different things to do. What you need to do on your end is take note. Go to ewg.org. You can look up your household cleaners. You can look up your cosmetics. It ranks them, and you can find, you know, which are some of the ones that are the most toxic. You'd be surprised what slipped into your house, or maybe just not have had eyes on this in your past. But what goes on your skin gets into your body. Think about how nicotine patches work. Nicotine patches, they put it on your skin in order to influence your body, right? Same thing with hormone creams and things like that.
Mhm.
And so what goes on your skin gets into your body. You know, the EPA estimates that our indoor air is 5 to 7 times more toxic than our outdoor air. If you're building a new home, they said it's 100 times more toxic. I'm rolling my eyes because I just built a new home. Even though we did all the green stuff, I know that there was some, you know, I know that there is some toxicity involved in that. That's why that we had to let it off gas for a little bit. But the point is that, you know, what we put into our body, what we spray into our air, you know, what we plug into our outlet, those things, I'm talking about those, you know, those,
Yeah, the air,
I don't want to name the brand. I don't even know how to say it without naming the brand, but
the air fresheners.
the
Yeah.
air fresheners that you plug into the wall, I think everyone knows what I'm talking about,
Mhm.
can be extremely toxic. And really, these can also lead to obesity because of the influence on hormones. And Kim, you talked about belly fat, and this is the obesogens, is what they're calling it now, because of the fact that the fat cells are actually a storing house for chemicals.
Yes.
Number 4 is aluminum heavy metals. Heavy metals like arsenic, lead, mercury, you know, they're all around us. And they are in so many different things that we can't even talk about in a venue like this. But we can talk about it at the makeover in more depth and ideally in person. So again, if you're not connected to a MaxLiving clinic, make sure you go to find a doc on maxliving.com and make sure you do get to this MaxLiving makeover. Again, it's a 3-hour long event. Maybe your doc is having his on or hers on a webinar. Make sure you get plugged in there, because that's when we really can go into some of this stuff that's not going to be censored on a venue like this.
We can't do that here.
Yeah, but let's just say heavy metals, they're toxic. They should not be controversial. Aluminum is toxic, should not be into your body.
Mhm.
Look at all the things that they're putting aluminum into. Look at the things that they're putting mercury and mercury preservatives into. Pay attention to these things, because when they get in your body, they influence not only your cells and your hormones, but when you start to it's like a little time watch. You know, you ever take off the time watch, you see all those little gears that work so perfectly together, and it's like, man, this is so cool. Well, it's like throwing a big wrench in there when you consume toxins, especially heavy metals, because they're so sticky that it literally is a disruptor hormonally and cellularly. Your cells hate toxins. They especially hate heavy metals. And the last one, number 5, is symptom management. So we're talking about the 5
Stuff you do, you know, the stuff you do.
it's the stuff that we do when we get symptoms in this country and in other countries too now. It's hey, when you let's say, yeah, again, I got to be careful here, but just think about it. When you get a headache, what are you taught to take? When you have a sinus issue or you have a runny nose, or what are you taught to do?
Yeah.
The question is, was the headache ever lack of some chemical concoction that you were lacking in your body?
Yeah.
Or was the runny nose or that high cholesterol there because God forgot to put some chemical in your liver that would stop the production of cholesterol?
Remember, we talked about your body is fearfully and wonderfully made. You don't need any help healing. You just don't need any interference. This is an interference in many cases, right?
It's a difference in a worldview is what it really comes down to. Is what we're talking about right now is a difference in worldview. Yeah. Because listen, there is a $1 trillion industry with over half of the $1 trillion sales coming from the United States and Canada. And even though we only make up 1/20th of the world, this is an industry that has so much political and technological influence that doctors can't even speak up about it anymore without risking censorship, even those who are losing their license. And ultimately, it's your choice how you choose to manage your health and healthcare. But you should know that there are risks, there's benefits, and oh, by the way, there still are alternatives. And you're going to have to seek those out, and you're going to have to be more diligent about digging into those alternatives here in the future. So that was a little bit of a rant, Kim.
Yeah, I know. I
mean, getting a little hot here. All right,
let's push the eject button for a second.
All right. Well, hey guys, I want to see some. Give me a thumbs up. You're still with me. Did everybody just like leave after that? No.
Oh, they run from us.
Body needs no help, just no interference. All right, we've got some people up. All right, and that's the whole purpose and principle and paradigm of the 5 essentials is that your body does need no help, just no interference. Right? The body's brilliant. It's intelligent. Look at the things that the body needs and just look at what it can't go without. Your brain, your nervous system. Listen, your brain stops, you stop. Your body, your nervous system is the most important system it's the most important system in the body. And that's why, the spine protects it. And that's why chiropractic and chiropractors recognize the need of alignment. And so one of the essentials to good health is to establish a balanced spine and nervous system because of the influence on neurology, nutrition. I mean, you go through the essentials.
The 5 essentials, though, that one piece, though, that's what sets us apart from any other health delivery system. This is what you'll get in MaxLiving. All of what we teach in these 5 essentials right there.
When we go through this in depth, I mean, it's so hard to do it on a webinar, but we go through these in depth at the makeover. And again, not signed up for the makeover, get signed up for the makeover. It should be obvious about at this point. Connect to your MaxLiving clinic. If you're not connected to a MaxLiving clinic yet, make sure you find one. Get on Find a Doc. It's as easy as that. But we go in depth in nutrition, and again, we talked about that. What goes into your body becomes a part of your body. We go in depth in what to eat, what not to eat. Mindset, what you think about, you bring about. And people think, that might be cliche, but it's the truth. It's mind over matter. In so many instances, how we think influences the expression of our physiology. Think about all the people with anxiety and depression and stress right now. Think about how much that's influencing their body because of the reaction to COVID around the world. And so many people right now, I've had patients who, they're nurses in the hospital, and they say there's an extraordinary amount of heart attacks that aren't actually heart attacks right now. It's called Takotsubo syndrome, where it's like mimicking a heart attack, but it's actually from stress. And so what we think about and how we react, I would say, or maybe even respond to the current world events is so critical.
The Bible scripture, Proverbs 23:7, as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. So what you just said is exactly right.
Yeah. And then oxygen in exercise. So that's the max T3. That's the high intensity interval training. It's moving our bodies and then minimizing those toxins and exposure to those toxins. We say minimize because you can't get rid of all of them, but you can minimize exposure to them. And that's why, when people come to the clinics, I love this study. Is really out of Dr. Fred Roberto's clinic, and Aaron Sousley was co-author on this about, resolution of type 2 diabetes. And by going through the 5 essentials and going through the protocols to get your body working better. It's not hard. Again, we say the body needs no help, just no interference. And we talked through the tricks I say tricks, but you get it. It's not really a trick. It's really principles to lose weight fast. We went through the 3 tips from cultures who live free of heart disease and the toxic top 5 and how to avoid them. But the most important factor really is you. And it's really the people that you hang around with. That Jim Rohn says you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And that's why at this seminar, this MaxLiving Makeover, this is all about community. all about community. We need it now more than ever. It's so stinking important. It's actually essential as we study with the people who have lived to 100 and beyond, that community is so important. And so whether you've been to one, you've been to 10, or you've never been to any, this is a time where get together with your people. These are your people that will be at this makeover. And even if you're doing it on a webinar, get to know these people, friend these people. If your doctor is doing it via the internet, then hey, make sure you plug into that, because right now we need to get together and we need to stick together. It's such a critical time to do so.
So I think when you sign up, think about who you want to do this with. Like if you're already part of the office and you sign up, bring someone to it. It's all about how are you going to change your family? How do you want to change? I mean, when you do it with a friend, so much more impactful.
Yep. So we kind of answered questions throughout, but we'll go back and piece through it. But hey, this is kind of cool. QR codes, if you never used one of these before. So a way to find a doc, take out your phone, and all you have to do is like hold up your camera. It's really cool how you do this. Hold up your camera. You don't take a picture of it. It'll find it. And then like a little drop down will come up and you boom, you click on it. And there you go. You can go to the maxliving.com/workshops if you really want to be old school and do it that way. But hey, this is our tribe. These are our peeps. You guys are our people. And again, this is our community. This is Max Living Nation. This is where we're going with this. And the reality is they can't stop us, and they're not going to. What did it say is that, you know, you tried to silence us, or you tried to, man, what is it? I'm going to blow it. It's like you tried to stop us, but you forgot we were seeds. Somebody post that. You tried to bury us. You forgot we were seeds. There it is. Tried to bury us. You forgot we were seeds. And the reality is like your voice does matter, and you're not alone. You and I are not alone right now. How we think matters. And this information, this type of information, it's never going to go away, because you can't hide the truth. You can't squash the truth. And eventually the truth prevails. And so we might be in a little bit of a holding pattern, a waiting game, but the truth wins in the end. And we're going to be here regardless. Amen. So sign up for the makeover. Make sure you bring a friend, get there, and we'll see you there.
Bless you guys.